I do feel like there's going to be a lot of like just chalk basic stuff. Like people are going to be in there and be like, okay, you're one of those guys. Like that's my thing. It's like you're one of those guys. That's your number two. Yeah, of course, of course.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I'm scared to death for you to see my list and comment on it, because just as you're speaking, I'm thinking of what my list tells me and says about me. And I'm thinking it says Josh got to like 2003 and was like, all right, I got it all. That's all I need.
So on this channel, on the show, we love making lists. It's a big part of what we do. We're geeks like that. And you actually kind of threw down the gauntlet and issued a challenge to come up with my top 50 bands of all time. It's kind of a daunting challenge that I don't know if either one of us were prepared for the ins and outs of doing something like this. How long did this take you to come up with your list of top 50, first of all?
I don't know the total hours, but I worked on this for a long time, just because for me, I had a very hard time coming up with 50 bands, because here's the text I would send you. I'm like, okay, now what are the parameters here again? 50 rock bands, right? So I can't put Beck on the list, and I can't put Andrew Bird on the list, and I can't put who was I thinking of? Um I don't know, some band that I decided was extremely electronic and could not be considered rock at all. So I had to leave that band off the list too. So it was challenging to come up with. At first, I thought it was going to be challenging deciding if the band deserved to be on the list or not. That was not the challenge for me. It was, are there 50 rock bands that I like enough to include on a favorites all-time list?
It's funny because I had the opposite problem where it's just like, so we came up with parameters and it's like, okay, no solo artists. And there are some bands that you'll see this on my list that were kind of like, okay, they're not really rock in the classic sense, but they're not so electronic that I think of them as like electronic music necessarily. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to talk about the Trainspotting soundtrack soon. So like Left Field, Underworld, like those like that doesn't make the cut really. Chemical Brothers, stuff like that. Anyway, so like those were the parameters that helped narrow it down a little bit for me.
But I did include Hot Chip. Sneak preview. You are going to find Hot Chip on my list because, hey, they have that episode of what's it called, Tiny Desk.
Yeah.
And they're playing instruments in a small room, and so that says rock band to me.
Yeah, they also, they're not afraid to incorporate drums and guitar and all that stuff. I also have like Gorillaz on my list, so spoiler. And we haven't seen each other's lists, by the way. So I would say this is where I'm at today. This is like the bands that I like that help me simplify things a little bit.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I'm scared to death for you to see my list and comment on it, because just as you're speaking, I'm thinking of what my list tells me and says about me. And I'm thinking it says Josh got to like 2003 and was like, all right, I got it all. That's all I need. Good now. And also, I'm worried that my biggest fear in doing this, I would text you ever so often, and be like, try to get into my weird head and tell me what bands I've forgotten. Cause I'm sure there's 3 or 4 that I've just
one of them,
totally
right?
left
like,
off. Yeah.
I threw out one at least.
Yeah. And, there was a band just the other day. I mean, I'm like, think I've got my 50 and I'm ranking them, and a band came in my head and I was like, oh my gosh. And they landed at like number 22 on my list, and I almost left them out completely because I just forgot. So I'm sure there's going to be 2 or 3 of those bands where I'm going to see your list and be like, oh my gosh, duh, totally forgot about that band.
I don't know what you'll think about my list. I do feel like there's going to be a lot of like just chalk basic stuff. Like people are going to be in there and be like, okay, you're one of those guys. Like that's my thing. It's like you're one of those guys. That's your number two. Yeah, of course, of course. And it's like, okay, I get it. So there's a vulnerability that comes along with like coming up with a list like this and then sharing it with people. So I think that's part of the fun of what we're doing today too. Again, we haven't seen each other's lists. Let's see how well we know each other here. Guessing top three.
I want to go
You want to go?
first. Can I
You
can
go
I guess
first.
your top three?
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, I bet every nickel that is in my savings account and that I've got tucked away anywhere else that the Beatles are on your in your top three. I would even almost bet that they're your number one, but I know the Beatles are in your top three. I think Blur's in your top three. And the third, I'm not sure of. I think it's going to be a wild card, but I'm just going to guess. I know I'm wrong, but I'm going to say Radiohead. So
Okay.
that's my guess for your top 3 is the Beatles, Blur, Radiohead.
Okay. My guess for you, I'm actually going to have two of the same bands that you guessed for me that I'm going to guess for you. I'm going to guess that Radiohead's number one on your list. I'm going to say that you have Blur as maybe number two. Maybe they fell to number three at some point in this, but they're in your top three. That's my guess. And then I just have seen the sparkle in your eye when we talk about LCD sound system lately. There's like a twinkle in there. So I that's kind of where I'm going. And it's funny because I don't think you've spent the last 20 years listening to LCD sound system every day, but they feel like they had such an impact on you that I think they snuck in there of where you're at today. So that's my guess. Radiohead,
That's
Blur,
awesome.
LCD sound system.
That's awesome. I will tell you this. I will tell you a spoiler alert. There are 2 bands. I think they're in my top 10. There's 2 bands in my top 10 that if you would have asked me if we'd have done this list a year or 2 ago, they're probably not even in my top 50. And they're in my top 10. So that's cool.
That is cool. All right, man. Well, you know what? This is already off to a good start, and you're about to see why. I sent you my list is sitting in your text message. It's on your phone. I see your list now too. All right, you ready to do this?
I just sent you my list.
Okay,
Yes.
let's go.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, I was so close.
I got
I
it.
was so, and you know what, dude? You named them off, and I was like, "This is exactly what I was afraid of." It's like I'm so predictable.
Well, you almost got mine too. You got 2 out of 3, so that's
I was
good.
very close, and LCD it made your top 10. It made your top 10.
Wow. I'm loving your list, man. So there's somebody in your top 10 that I love that I didn't think was going to be in your top 10, but that's cool.
Who is it?
It's Pink Floyd. I
Oh
love Pink
yeah.
Floyd too, and they're on my list. And I knew you liked Pink Floyd, just didn't think they were going to be in your top 10, and I like seeing them there. That's cool.
See, a couple I see on your list, I'm already jealous of. Number 23, REM clocking in. Yeah, I'm wondering, like, maybe that one should have made the cut for me. That's immediately one of my gut reactions here. That's a really good addition there. We have a lot of overlap here. Even in some of the bands that I wouldn't have expected you to have on your list that we have overlap with. Like I'm seeing you with ELO is on your
Yeah.
list. I love that.
Yes.
You have Queen in there. Allman Brothers Band makes your list. Like I
Yes.
that makes total sense. And we
And you
both
know
have
what?
those on our lists.
And you know what? I can probably thank you for all that. Any band on here that recorded before 1988, I probably should attribute to you because when we started hanging out and listening to music, I had this silly hang up that was like if it's old, it's not as good as what's new. It's got to be new. It's got to be cutting edge and new.
Mm.
And you taught me that everything new came from something old, and this old stuff is really good, and you got to get your foundation with all these bands. So any band of mine like Rolling Stones, the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, I would have probably never given those bands a chance. And I heard you playing them all the time. And Allman Brothers falls right into that mode too. And Allman Brothers is one of those bands that's like, gosh, I forget to bring those out. And every
Yeah.
time I do, I'm just like, gosh, this is so good.
It's funny because they're on my list too. And the funny thing about the Allman Brothers is that, like, the Allman Brothers get lumped in with like some other sort of Southern influenced bands around that time, but I feel like they offer so much more. They have so much more depth than a lot of those other bands, and in some ways they're kind of like swimming in some of the same waters as the Grateful Dead. Like, they could be really experimental. There are different phases of the Allman Brothers, but when it can get really psychedelic and crazy, or it can be, all of the hits that they had. You can take those songs and they're just great pop songs too. So it's cool that you have them on your list. You do have the Grateful Dead on there as well. The Who. I'm impressed by a lot of the older bands that you have. I'm straight away looking at it and thinking like, okay, what decades? You have a pretty good spread here of decades
70s and
going on.
90s. 60s,
70s and
70s, and
90s.
90s.
Yeah. But you're also representing with Gorillaz, with LCD Sound System.
What'd you think about
Hot Chip.
Yaysayer being number 4? Did that surprise you?
Dude, it's so funny. So here's one thing that surprises me. I was like, oh, LCD Sound System's gonna be up there. Yaysayer has shot to your top 5. That is impressive.
And if you are watching this, please go back and watch some of our older episodes, because there's an episode where I think we're talking about Hot Chip, and I'm like, guess what I just found? Yaysayer. After I was done listening to a Hot Chip album, my my listening my program gave me they that live in my phone decided to play Yaysayer, and I'd just totally forgotten about Yaysayer. I listened to Odd Blood when it came out 2010, 2011, 2012, then just totally forgot about them. Then we start doing a deep dive on Hot Chip. Spotify gives me Yaysayer again, and then I'm like, it just started this whole new love affair that I'm a hot in the middle of it right now. That's probably why they're number 4. If we do this list in 2 years, they might not be that high, but I don't know. They are. We always talk about what bands put out multiple albums where we love those albums. Yaysayer gave us 4 albums, and I love every single one of them. So that's why they're so high on my list. And some of these other bands like The Who, I'm like, man, I don't know that I could really tell you about one of The Who's albums that I spend a lot of time with, but they just have such good songs
Yeah.
that have been on the soundtrack of your life
Right.
from the beginning. So I'm like, even some of those bands I feel like deserve to be on this list, even if they don't have 2 or 3 albums that that I spent a lot of time with and fell in love with.
Absolutely. The Who, I tell you what, man, you and I might have to do a deep dive on Live at Leeds, the first live album by The Who. It was 1970, but it is just like pure rock. It is an amazing live album. One of my favorite things from The Who. They also made my list as well. And of course, if you're watching this on video, we have these lists on the screen. We're popping them up occasionally, and we'll put them in the comments too, like in our, or we'll find some
There
way to
you
put them
go.
in the comments if you're listening to this and you can't actually see things visually.
Let me give you
Uh,
Seth's top 10 real quick. The
yeah,
Beatles, Blur, Radiohead, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, The Minutemen, Talking Heads, Gorillaz, The Kinks, The Rolling Stones. That rounds up Seth's top 10. And a band like the Minutemen, I could have guessed they would have been on there because I hear you talk about them all the time. Talking Heads is a band that I was like, man, they almost made my top 50, but because I haven't spent a lot of time with them and couldn't tell you a lot about them, they didn't make my list. But they have 2 or 3 songs that I absolutely love.
let me go through your top 10. starting with number one: Radiohead, Blur, Gorillaz, Yeasayer, Spoon, Led Zeppelin, the Beatles, Nirvana. Interesting that they're still in the mix there. And at one point, I think that was like your all-time go-to, like back when we first started hanging out. Wilco, LCD Sound System. I like that you have, first of all, a couple things in here. I love that Led Zeppelin is in your top 10, almost cracking your top 5, because I do think that band is special. You're not particularly, I mean, you do have a lot of bands that that are the classics, the Stones, the Beatles, the Who. A lot of those bands are on your list, but you're not the kind of guy who's like classic rock all the way. And the fact that Led Zeppelin can still speak to you on a level that you're like, man, I got to put them in there, because Led Zeppelin brings so much more to the table than like rock anthems. They're funky. They can have beautiful acoustic stuff. They can be really heavy. They can be so many different things. I love to see them in your list. And then another one too, your number 5, Spoon. I love seeing that on the list because, man, just a really special band that is kind of unsung. I feel like people don't always know or appreciate what Spoon has to offer, and I think that they're just like this amazing band that's been really prolific over the last 20 plus years, and they need all the love that people want to give them. So I love seeing that on your top 10 as well.
I think Spoon is, they came around at a perfect time for us where, they dropped their first big debut album when we're like 18 years old, and it was so good and it resonated with us. And then it's like when something catches you like that, it's like you don't forget. You stay with a band that makes an impression on you like that. And then, like you said, I mean, just for the last 25 years has a career that could be unrivaled in rock music.
I also love, okay, so when we do this, and on the video version of this episode, I will be taking the image that you sent me and putting it on screen, because it is
Beautiful.
clearly the work of a man who has been thinking hard about this stuff. You're a pencil guy, and it's so great. Like, you can see the erase marks, you can see
Yeah.
you
You
can
can
see
see
the long nights that you've spent like kind of
you can
sweating
see
over
where
this.
LCD Sound System debuted at 8 and
They
Broken
dropped.
Hills debuted at 9.
Yeah.
Floyd debuted at 12, and then those 3 bands got pushed down a little bit as I remembered other bands or decided I liked them more. But yeah, yeah, it was hard. You know what I started doing is I started putting them in, like, I would get my top 10, and then I'd be like, "Okay, now who's my next 10? Let's make a group of 10." And then, like, when I had a group of 10, ranking them seemed a lot less daunting than 50. But then all of a sudden I'd have it figured out and I'd be like, "Wait a minute. I can't have a piece of paper that that has Alice in Chains in front of Steely Dan." I've got to I'm like, they'll just cancel their subscription immediately.
I honestly, like, I had that thing a lot in my head too, which is like I would have the list out, and I would be going through it, and I'd be like, okay, yeah, no, 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 this feels right, this feels right. And then I would look at it and I would be like, yeah, but like, I mean, I currently have like, you would just look at the order of it, and I would be like, do I really think that I like Krungbin more than like New Order? And it's like, that's a bit of a stretch. They're still kind of new, because I do have newer bands on my list. Something that I get obsessed with, or something that is like, if it's captured my imagination for several years, and it's like I'm currently in the throes of listening to this, which there are several bands in that category, they make the list.
Okay, one thing I noticed here is something I did not see coming is number 19, you have Devo. Here's another band that I have no frame of reference for besides that video that used to play on Beavis and Butthead.
Whip it.
Where yeah, Whip It. There it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. I'm gonna have to do some introduction to Devo. It is a geeky entry on my list for sure, but I absolutely love that band.
Well, I just started a Netflix documentary about them.
Oh yeah, I've
So
seen that. I haven't watched it yet, but
yeah,
I wanna watch that one.
yeah, it's gonna be good. I can tell. I watched like the first 15 minutes of it, I think, and then
They
had
were
to do
really
something else.
innovative sort of band. They were doing really interesting, weird, challenging stuff, but the music is fun. Like even though the concepts and stuff can get like wild, the music is always really solid. I think great use of synthesizers too, like a real pioneer band in that list. One of the things that I'm noticing looking at your list, if there's an area, I'm thinking like so many different decades represented here. Um, I think that one of the things that we can dive into here is we need to get you a couple bands from the 80s.
That's it.
80s at the like you have a lot of 90s, there's some 60s, there's some 70s, the 90s, the 2000s, probably even the 2010s you could say with a lot of these. Like Tame Impala represents that too. Yeah, dude. And that's kind of what we've been doing with some of our episodes. If anybody wants to hear those, we have a run of shows where we're having you listen to bands for the first time because that's a thing that didn't come up. We were too young to be exposed to a lot of those bands, and these include bands like Devo. But then also, like, I didn't get into those until later. You know what I mean? Like, I was resistant to a lot of like the new wave stuff. And so I wasn't listening to that until like probably in my mid to late 20s. And so yeah, that's a fun decade to dive into with you.
What got you going down that avenue of, you know, checking out bands like Joy Division and New Order and The Clash and some of those other band? Well, here's what I was going to say before you answer that question. What I would like to say too is I think I counted there's 16 bands on your list that I could not name one song from them. So that just shows you that, you know, on your list is not the, you know, I think you said before we started that you thought people might look at your list and be like, oh, of course that's going to be on your list. But I would say after the top 15 or 20, you know, there's going to be a lot of bands on your list that people don't know anything about them. So I thought that was interesting. Now, would you like to tell us what got you going down the avenue of all those 80s bands that you were talking about?
Yeah, for sure. So like I remember, like I said, I remember as a kid hearing things with like synthesizers and even drum machines. And this is I'm talking like very young, and I was very snobby about it and like this isn't real, I need real. And then I remember over time, like you start to dive into bands that you really like, you hear them talk about the bands that they like, and you start to just make notes of like, boy, I've heard that like Joy Division, like boy, I've heard that band a lot. And you know, you listen to it and some of it sticks and some of it doesn't. But you have a few things that you're like, boy, I'm obsessed with that Joy Division song, a song like Disorder or something. And it's like, boy, I love that one song. With New Order, it was the same way. That Trainspotting song, Temptation. And I was like, and honestly, Trainspotting was a great introduction. It was a gateway drug for a lot of that stuff. And I would hear that song and I'd be like, I even remember telling a friend of ours, I remember telling our friend Jay, like, dude, Joy Division, I've really come around. I love everything of theirs. But then they became New Order after the lead singer died. And it's like, I really like the early New Order, but the later New Order, it's like it sounds really 80s ish and it's not. And then over time, everything that I'm like, I don't like that. It's like you give me enough time and then some exposure to it and to wrap my head around it. And eventually you kind of come to appreciate it. It's like an acquired taste, you know? And after some time, I started to notice like, okay, I was really reluctant about a lot of this stuff, you know, and like now I'm getting into it. And then I found on Sirius XM, there was a channel called First Wave, and that was I probably found that in like 2006, maybe 2005, 2006. I want to say maybe a little bit later than that. And I was already primed. I was like, I'd loosened up all my apprehension about 80s music and synthesizers and all that stuff. And then it was just like, I started listening to that and it was like, okay, every 5 songs, I like one or two songs out of those 5 songs. And then it was like out of every 5 songs, it was like, yeah, well, now I've kind of warmed up to that one. It's like now out of every 5 songs, I like 3 or 4 songs, and still I don't like every song that I hear on there, but that gave me a good surface level starting point. And then you watch a documentary and it's like, oh, I watch a documentary about electronic music, and Happy Mondays are mentioned, and you're like, what's that about? And you follow that thread and you're like, okay, this is a whole thing going on in Manchester around the same time as like New Order and all of that stuff. And then you follow the thread. And so it's just like years of following the thread, and almost always being first exposed to it and being like, nah, like that one song's cool. And then that's it. And then after time, you're like, oh yeah, but then that other song's kind of cool too. And before you know it, you're like, I fucking love this band. So that happens to
Right.
me all the time. So like a lot of my list is just decades of me going through that reluctant and then embracing it.
Yeah, when I think of the 80s and synthesizers, used to what I thought of like as a kid, what I thought of was like Jump by Van Halen,
Right, right.
you know, and it was like I didn't know I don't know a lot about what's going on, but I know I don't like that, and I don't like the way that sounds. And so it
Yeah.
was like, you know, when we were 6 and 7 years old, we weren't hearing New Order or Joy Division
No.
or the stuff that was cool. All we heard was what was on the radio, and it was like, that definitely was not cool. So I feel like I just kind of dismissed the 80s generation because what we were listening to in the 90s, it was people hearing the 80s stuff and being like, well, we don't want to do that, let's do something
Right.
totally different. And then we start listening to Hot Chip and LCD Sound System and all these bands in the mid 2000s, and we're like, and then all all their inspiration is from those 80s bands that we don't know anything about. So it's like
Exactly.
that those were all their favorite bands. So now they're making a brand of music that we really like, and their whole foundation and inspiration is this whole decade of music or at least me, I wasn't familiar with at all and have no frame of reference for. So I think it's fun that now that I'm becoming a huge fan of LCD Sound System and Yesayer, I can go back and listen to these bands that inspired them and motivated them.
Absolutely. So many great bands too that I just didn't make the cut. And on any given day, maybe they would have, or maybe they will in the future, or maybe they would have in the past. And they kind of weave in and out of here. I mean, neither one of us have much metal on our lists. Like there are a lot of genres. Like we clearly have like pretty similar tastes in a lot of regards, but this
I
is
did want
fascinating
to
to look at.
I did want to kind of hit on that nerd rock avenue I
Yeah.
had on my you noticed on my
Weezer's not
list.
anywhere on our list here. I noticed neither one
No,
of
it
us.
it no, it did make mine. It did make mine. 44.
It
I
is on your list. It is
I got
44.
I got Not a Surf, Weezer, Superdrag, and Harvey Danger made my
Yes, you're
list.
right.
And
Yeah.
so some of those bands I'm like, gosh, I haven't listened to it in a while. Is it still something I really like? But gosh, somebody like Weezer that I haven't gone back to much. Just those first two albums were made such an impression on me, and I liked them so much. And I'm sure if I pulled them out today, I would still um, love Pinkerton, Weezer's second album. And then, like Not a Surf, I've seen them in concert. I got to meet them one time and talk to them, and I like several of their albums. Oh, Harvey Danger is a band we're going to talk about. They
Yeah.
have two albums that I love start to finish and could probably, uh, recreate every note and sound that's on that album because I've listened to it so much. So, yeah, that was a fun lane of bands to go back and listen to and make sure they deserve to be on my list.
And I'll just say like a few takeaways here. Just, your list does kind of bridge a lot of different waves of innovation too. I like that about it. You've got these British legends like Radiohead, Blur, and the Beatles, and a bunch of American staples like Nirvana, Wilco, and the Grateful Dead. It's a nice transatlantic mix. It shows that you're not just anchored in one scene or one place. And then, you have a lot of bands that push genres forward. The Beatles and the Stones, they represent that 60s revolution. Then you have like LCD and Tame Impala, that more modern genre blending sound. So just basically nodding to a lot of different pioneers from each era. And then another is a mix of really big stadium acts, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Queen, alongside some of the more alternative or indie leaning groups like Spoon, The Shins. You have Guster on your list. It's like, I like that you appreciate both the iconic, larger than life bands and the more sort of quirky cult favorites that you have in there. It's a lot of
Yeah,
fun.
and that's what I kept telling myself is, "Hey, this is my favorite list. It's not the 50 most talented or most
Yes.
decorated bands of all time. These are my favorite 50 bands." So, I would say that's a reason why this would be a worthwhile exercise for our listeners and, the people who check out this episode. If you come across this, why should I do this? It's a journey of self-discovery, and like you said, maybe you find an area where like the 80s decade for me, where you're like, gosh, I just kind of miss this whole block of time of music, and it would be fun to go back and discover what I missed.
100%. I totally agree. If you like lists, if you like watching people make lists and chiming in with your own, then you're going to like our channel. It's a huge part of what we do. It's the making lists is just one of the most fun things any music nerd can do. I don't know if it's a generational thing. I don't know if younger listeners or older listeners would be as into this, but let us know what you think. I don't know if I want to know what you think about my list personally, but I want to know what your list is. Let me know your top 10, your top 20, whatever you feel comfortable sharing. It is fun. You're right. The self-discovery aspect of it is really great. And then it can kind of shed light on things that's like, oh, maybe this is missing and I can go a little bit deeper. I certainly had that experience doing this. Yeah, it's been a blast. Any other takeaways before we wrap it up on this one?
No, I'm just glad that you know me so well and I know you so well.
we were pretty close there on our. You nailed my top three. I'll just say that was very impressive. Okay, if you like this, if you enjoyed it, like the episode, subscribe to the channel. It really makes a big difference. It helps us out a lot when we get subscribers on the YouTube channel. If you're listening in podcast land, just follow the podcast and let us know if you want to see lists, if you have thoughts on any of these bands that we talked about or that we showed that you want to go deeper on. Let us know, because we also do album deep dives and all of that fun stuff. All the music nerddom we're all about. Buddy, this has been so much fun. I love making this list. I love seeing your list. I'm going to keep looking at it, and it's already knocked some cobwebs off of some bands that I need to go check out.
You know what's sad about our crazy brains too is if somebody made us do this next week, our list would look different because
Yes. And if
because
you
we're
ask me,
crazy people.
if you took this list away from me and started asking me, are they on this list? I wouldn't be able to answer that question. I would have no